Hey guys, sorry I am late. I hope it's bright enough for you. You can see me okay because my camera looks kind of dark. But hey, sorry I'm late. I lost track of time. I was busy doing a couple of things this morning, so I'm late jumping on. But today I want to talk a little bit about service contracts. And today I'm going to talk specifically about your statement of work. This is pretty applicable to all sorts of service contracts, so it's not going to be specific to really any particular industry. So probably a little bit later on, I'm going to talk more specifically to particular industries, like the virtual assistants, maybe like those in the design community. But today I'm going to keep it a little bit more general. So those who don't know who I am, my name is Raven Willis, and I'm an attorney in Fort Worth, well, right outside of Fort Worth, Texas, in Keller. And I specialize in negotiating, writing, reviewing contracts. Hey, Isaiah. It's the laughing face. So that's me. And over the course of my career, I've been doing contracts for about, I'd say 17 years. And I've negotiated and reviewed and monitored probably well over $1 billion worth of contracts. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts as well as like small contracts worth thousands of dollars. And there's a lot of, and I've said this before in other lives, there is a lot of things that I've noticed over the course of my career that I can pretty much tell a good contract from a bad contract, or things that are going to be good versus things that I know it's going to be a problem. And the first topic today, which is the statements of work, is probably the number one thing that I can look at in a contract, and I can say with pretty much, hey Amber, I can say with pretty much certainty, whether or not that performance is going to go well or if it's going to be questionable. And so I've said before, the number one thing that distinguishes, and there's a lot, but the number one thing that distinguishes a really good contract from those that are not really good and not very strong, it's going to be details. And the statement of work, hey Quentin, the statement of work is no exception. So that's what, good morning. So that's really is what's going to distinguish your service contract, a good service contract, from one that's going to be questionable and that might cause you some trouble down the line. So the statement of work, here are some tips to help strengthen your statement of work. Number one is you want to describe the work that you're doing in as much detail as possible. And when I say this, what I do generally is when I'm looking at a contract and, I'm looking at it from the for the first time, I put myself there in that particular situation, and it should lay out step by step what every single thing is that you're going to be doing. Now, if it's kind of, if you need some wiggle room, then you may not want to go, this deep into it. But for me, when I am reviewing a contract and when I have noticed contracts that are performed with relatively little problems, it's going to be extremely, extremely detailed, just like this. So like, for instance, say I'm going to the grocery store. What I do is I get my purse, I get my keys, I go in my car, I put the key in the ignition, I turn the ignition, I open the garage door first, turn the ignition, back the car out. You see, it's like step by step, detail. So your statements of work, those strong statements of works are ones that are going to have extremely detailed step. Each of, every step of the way, it's going to detail and outline exactly what it is you're going to be doing. So that's the first thing, is you need to, in detail, describe what it is you're going to be doing step by step. And the second thing is specific delivery dates and deliverables. So if you're actually going to be providing, something, a report, or say if you're in design, you're going to provide like an illustration. If you're going to provide something, oh gosh, I don't know, anything deliverable. Like for me, a lot of times Hello. Hey, Loa. I hope, am I pronouncing that right? Hey, so it doesn't matter what it is. It can be a report, it can be an illustration, or whatever. You need to put in there actual delivery dates, and also specify what those, deliverables are. Again, details, details, details. If an approval is necessary for that particular deliverable, make sure you put that timeline in there. Specify how long you're going to wait for feedback before you're going to assume that the oh good, I pronounced it right. Before you assume that that deliverable is accepted, put a timeline in there for the acceptance. Put milestones in there as well. Again, it's all about detail. And one thing you might want to take into consideration is, even though I say you want detail, you don't want it to appear that the other party is controlling what you're doing. So there's a fine line between, making sure that you are keeping them abreast of everything that you're doing, and you want their approval. You don't want to get through the entire contract and then wait for them to have to approve something, and then you guys have issues down the line. But at the same time, you definitely never want it to appear that they are in fact controlling your day-to-day activities. So make sure that it's going to be clear that you are working 100% independent, and the method of your performance is completely up to you. However, you still want to work those details and work those approvals and those milestones into your statements of work. And another thing is that kind of goes along with that is when you're being detailed, make sure that it's not what's called ambiguous, which means make sure it's very clear and understandable. So you might want to get, a third party to read it over and say, hey, if you read this right here, is it clear about what I'm doing? Because what happens in the world of contracting is if there are any terms in your contract that are deemed unclear or ambiguous, then it's going to be construed against the person who, Adrian, thank you, Adrian. It's going to be construed against the party that wrote the contract. So if it's your contract, if it's your service contract, and if there's anything that is unclear, or if there's any terms in the contract that contradict other terms in other places in the contract, then it's going to be construed against you, and it's going to be construed in their favor. So make sure as you go and you add these details to the contract, I would say it's good to have someone. Hey, Alicia, did you just join? Hey, Andre. It's good to have somebody look over your contract and make sure it's not clear. So you don't ever want something to be ambiguous, because again, that's not going to go in your favor. One other thing about the statement of work, and this is the final thing, that's very important, is to specify who is going to be your point of contact. Especially if it's more than one person. Good morning. If it's more than one person who you work with in your company to provide services, then this is going to be very, very important. Usually you have one person who has the authority to change the contract, and then usually you have somebody else who has the authority to dictate the technical piece of it. So when I used to work for a government contractor, Bell Helicopter, it was very common that the technical point of contact is someone who's obviously very different than the contract's point of contact, because knowing contracts and knowing the legal aspect of a contract is obviously very different than actually performing the job. So if it's a really big job and it's a really big contract, then it might be, hey, Idris, it might be beneficial to have two different points of contact. And why this is important also is because you don't want the technical person, if they have no knowledge of contracts and no knowledge of legal anything, you don't want the technical person binding your company and committing your company to do something that you haven't captured in the fee schedule or you haven't captured in your fees. So you want to funnel in who's going to be able to make substantive changes to the work. And so you want to keep that as the person who has the contracts authority in your company, and vice versa. You don't want your contracts person who doesn't know actually how to perform the work, necessarily dictating how that's going to happen. So you want to have maybe two parties, but either way, you want to specify who has the authority to commit your company to what. Some people might have authority over one piece and some might have authority over another. If you have several members on your team, I'm guessing that's probably going to be the case. And so you want to make sure that you specify who those individuals are. So again, just to recap, so to make sure your service contract is as tight as it possibly can, one of the ways you can do that is to make sure you make sure you have your statement of work as detailed as possible. Number one, you want to specify the delivery dates and specify your deliverables. Try to explain the step-by-step process of the work in as much detail as you want to. Work milestones in there if that's going to work. Make sure you say what's going to be deemed as acceptance. Put timelines on that. Make it as clear as you possibly can, because if there's any ambiguities in your contract, it's going to be construed against you and in the favor of the other party, and you don't necessarily want that. And also make sure you specify who in your team is responsible for what and who in your team has the authority to bind the company in what capacity. So, all right, that's it for today. I have so many more points to go over. Like, I have literally 2 pages of notes. You probably can't see that, but I have a lot. And I'm going to jump on again later on this week. I'm going to try to do it at least one more time, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It depends on how far I can get in some of my work with my clients. So I hope this was helpful. Y'all, let me know if it was helpful. Leave me a comment. If you guys have questions, go ahead and post the questions below and then I'll answer it. But I will talk to y'all later. Again, if you guys need help with your contracts, you can work with me one-on-one. Just shoot me a note, leave me a message, and we'll get started. So, all right, y'all have a good day. Thanks, Leisha. All right, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.